It was a full-scale eruption. And to understand why, you have to rewind a little and trace the chain of events that brought us to this point, because the story of Alex Eala in 2026 is not a story of one good week or a lucky draw or a fleeting moment in the spotlight. It is the story of an athlete assembling the pieces of something rare and significant, one tournament at a time, with a consistency and a composure that belies her age. She started this season ranked 53rd in the world. 53rd. That number feels almost quaint now. In January, she reached the semi-finals of the ASB Classic in Auckland, showing glimpses of the tactical variety that would become her signature in the months to come. She stumbled early in the Australian Open, a first-round exit to Alicia Parks, the kind of setback that has derailed the momentum of many a young player. But Eala did something then that she has done repeatedly throughout this year. She reset. She recalibrated. And she came back stronger. The Middle East swing in February was where the broader tennis community began to take genuine notice. At the Abu Dhabi Open, she carved her way to the quarterfinals before running into Ekaterina Alexandrova, at the time ranked 11th. A round of 64 exit in Doha followed, which could have rattled confidence, but then came Dubai. That tournament told you everything you needed to know about where Eala's game was headed. She won 3 matches, including a straight-sets demolition of Jasmine Paolini, a top 10 player and a former Grand Slam finalist. She only stopped when she ran into Coco Gauff in the quarterfinals. But the message had been delivered. This was not a player content to hover in the middle of the rankings. This was a player hunting bigger targets. By March, she had climbed to a career high of 29. The Indian Wells Open gave her another round of 16 appearance. The Miami Open provided another deep run. And then came the part of the season that tested her in a different way entirely, clay. Eala has never hidden from the fact that the red dirt is not her most comfortable surface. The Linz Open brought a loss to Jelena Ostapenko. Stuttgart offered a defeat against Leylah Fernandez. Madrid saw her fall to Elise Mertens. The French Open delivered a first-round exit against Iva Jovic. On paper, the clay swing looked rough. But the players who understand development, who understand the long arc of building a complete game, knew that Eala was absorbing information on that surface, filing it away, preparing herself for the transitions that would follow. And then the grass arrived. Birmingham was the turning point that not enough people talk about. She won that WTA 125 title outright, her second at that level, and something shifted in her game. The serve, always solid, began landing with more precision on the faster surface. Her movement, already quick, seemed to gain an extra gear. And her ability to construct points from the baseline while maintaining the option to come forward started looking genuinely dangerous. She reached the round of 16 at the HSBC Championships in Nottingham, then traveled to Berlin and produced a semi-final run that included victories over 2 top 10 opponents. By the time the rankings updated heading into Wimbledon, she was back inside the top 30, sitting at 32, and she had the kind of form that makes seeding committees nervous about whoever lands in the same section of a draw. Wimbledon itself was something else entirely. First round, Renata Zarazua. Eala handled it. Second round, Maya Joint, an up-and-coming Australian with pace and power. Eala dropped the first set, then flipped a switch, winning the next 2 sets 6-2 and 6-0. The kind of scoreline that tells you a player isn't just competing, she's imposing her will. And then came the third round. Iga Swiatek, the defending champion. The 3-time Grand Slam winner who had taken ownership of center court 12 months earlier. Swiatek, ranked 3rd in the world. Swiatek, who had looked imperious in her opening rounds. Swiatek, who was supposed to coast through the bottom half of the draw. What Eala did to her that afternoon was not a fluke. It was a tactical masterclass dressed in the clothing of a thriller. The first set alone lasted an hour and 24 minutes and produced one of the most extraordinary tiebreaks you will ever see at Wimbledon, a 20-point epic that saw Eala save multiple set points and convert on her 4th opportunity. She broke Swiatek's serve 5 times across the match. She won 68% of points on the pole's second serve, an absolutely devastating number that reflected not just aggressive returning, but the intelligence to read patterns and exploit weaknesses. Swiatek committed 44 unforced errors to Eala's 21. The scoreline read 7-6, 11-9 in the breaker, then 6-2. Straight sets, though the first set alone felt like a full match. When Eala struck that sweeping forehand winner on her third match point to close it out, the eruption on center court was not just polite applause for a good upset. It was genuine awe. The commentary team scrambled to contextualize what they had just witnessed. Social media across the Philippines crashed under the weight of simultaneous celebration. And in the locker room afterward, a quiet young woman from Manila had just made history in a way that no Filipino tennis player, male or female, had ever managed before. The fourth round brought Jasmine Paolini, the 13th seed and the 2024 Wimbledon finalist, a player who carried a personal grudge after Eala had beaten her in Dubai earlier in the year. This time, Paolini was ready. The Italian took the first set 6-4, was broken back in the second as Eala refused to yield, then watched the Filipina save 3 break points at 5-3 down with 5 consecutive points to level the match. In the decider, experience told. Paolini won 6-3, and Eala's Wimbledon was over. But the ovation she received as she left center court spoke volumes. A standing ovation. For a player who had just lost. Because everyone in that stadium knew they had watched something more than a tennis match. They had watched the announcement of an arrival. In the days that followed, the world got to see the other side of what Eala's tennis means. She flew home to Manila and was greeted by a delegation from the Philippine Sports Commission and the Philippine Olympic Committee. The following day, she stood inside Malacanang Palace, the official residence of the President of the Philippines, and received a presidential citation from President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. himself. She told the assembled dignitaries, "I feel very seen." She told them that the hours that are not on television, the training sessions and the travel and the solitary work, felt validated. She spoke in Filipino and said, "Lubos kong ipinagmamalaki ang pagiging Filipino." I am very proud to be Filipino. The president admitted, on camera, that he was a fan, that he was gushing. In a nation of over 100 million people where basketball reigns supreme, a 21-year-old tennis player had become a phenomenon comparable to Manny Pacquiao. That is not a comparison made lightly. And now, Washington. The Mubadala DC Open. A WTA 500 tournament on outdoor hard courts at the William H. G. Fitzgerald Tennis Center, running from July 27th through August 2nd. This is where Eala begins her North American hard court campaign, the stretch of the season that leads through Cincinnati and ultimately to the U.S. Open. And the anticipation surrounding her presence in this draw has already transformed the feel of the entire event. Consider the field she's entering. Jessica Pegula, the world number 3 and a 2-time former champion at this tournament, headlines as the top seed. Alina Svitolina, ranked 10th, holds the second seed. Naomi Osaka, whose own narrative of comeback and reinvention mirrors elements of Eala's story, is seeded third. Diana Schneider, Anna Kalinskaya, Madison Keys, and defending champion Leylah Fernandez round out the seedings. This is a stacked tournament, the kind of draw where every round offers a legitimate test, where there is no such thing as an easy path. But Eala enters ranked 29th in the world, and that ranking, bolstered by her Wimbledon points, places her in a fascinating position. She is not seeded in this 28-player draw, which means she could face a top seed as early as the first round. In most contexts, that would be considered a disadvantage. For Eala, given the form she has shown against top 10 opposition this year, it might actually suit her. She has beaten top 10 players 7 times in her career, with the most recent coming against Swiatek just 3 weeks ago. She has a proven ability to raise her level against higher-ranked opponents, a trait that separates genuinely elite competitors from players who are merely good. The surface transition is worth examining. Eala is moving from grass, where she enjoyed her best results of the season, to the hard courts of Washington. Hard court is, historically, her strongest surface. Her 2025 breakthrough came on hard courts, with that remarkable semi-final run at the Miami Open. Her 2026 results on the surface include the Abu Dhabi quarterfinal, the Dubai quarterfinal against Goff, the Indian Wells round of 16, and the ASB Classic semi-final in Auckland. She has shown the ability to generate pace from the baseline on hard courts, while also employing the net-rushing instincts she honed during the grass swing. The slightly slower bounce compared to grass will give her a fraction more time to set up her ground strokes, which could be significant against the power hitters she is likely to face. Then there is the doubles partnership, and this is where the storyline takes on another dimension entirely. Alex Eala and Venus Williams. Let that pairing settle in your mind for a moment. A 21-year-old Filipino sensation and a 46-year-old American legend, a 14-time Grand Slam doubles champion, sharing a court, sharing strategy, sharing the kind of on-court communication that can only happen when two people trust each other's instincts. They first teamed up on grass at Bad Homburg, reaching the quarterfinals, and the chemistry was apparently strong enough that Williams specifically chose to partner with Eala again in Washington. That is not a decision Venus Williams makes casually. She has decades of experience evaluating doubles partners, and the fact that she wants to continue working with Eala speaks to the younger player's court intelligence, her adaptability, and her competitive temperament. For Eala, the experience of standing alongside someone who has won Olympic gold medals, who has competed in Grand Slam finals spanning 4 different decades, who has navigated every possible pressure situation the sport can produce, is an education that no coaching session can replicate. The conversations between points, the body language during changeovers, the decision-making in real time under tournament conditions. These are the intangible benefits that could accelerate Eala's development in ways that might not show up in a singles match for months, but will eventually surface in crucial moments. What makes the fan reaction so intense is the convergence of all these threads at once. The Wimbledon run, the presidential reception, the ranking surge, the Venus-Williams partnership, the U.S. Open looming on the horizon. Filipino fans are not simply hoping Eala does well at the DC Open. They are investing emotionally in a trajectory, a journey that feels like it is building towards something historic. Public viewing events are already being organized in Manila, Cebu, and Davao. Social media groups dedicated to tracking her results have swelled to tens of thousands of members. The diaspora community across the United States, particularly in the D.C. metropolitan area, which has one of the largest Filipino populations in the country, is planning to attend in person. This is no longer just tennis fandom. This is cultural event, national identity expressed through sport. From a tactical standpoint, the hard courts of Washington will ask specific questions of Eala's game. The bounces will be truer than on grass, which means opponents will have more time to set up their returns against her serve. Her first serve percentage, which hovered around 63% at Wimbledon, will need to stay high because the margin for error decreases when the surface offers less natural assistance. On the return side, Eala's ability to stand close to the baseline and take the ball early, a habit she developed during the grass swing, could translate beautifully to hard courts. Against players like Osaka or Pegula, who rely on heavy ground strokes and deep ball placement, the willingness to step inside the baseline and compress rally time could be a decisive weapon. Her movement is another asset that translates well across surfaces. At 5'9", Eala has the reach and the stride length to cover the court efficiently, but it is her lateral quickness that really stands out. During the Swiatek match, tracking data showed she covered significantly more ground than her opponent while maintaining a higher percentage of balls returned inside the service boxes. That kind of athletic efficiency does not disappear when you change surfaces. If anything, the more predictable bounce of a hard court should make her footwork even more reliable. The mental side is perhaps the most fascinating element heading into Washington. Eala has spent the last 3 weeks processing an experience that would overwhelm many seasoned veterans, let alone a player still relatively new to the upper echelons of the tour. She went from the intensity of center court to a presidential palace to the adulation of an entire nation. The question now is how she channels that energy. Does the weight of expectation become a burden, or does the validation give her freedom? Based on everything she has shown this year, the evidence points strongly toward the latter. Eala has repeatedly demonstrated the ability to compartmentalize external noise and focus on process-oriented goals during matches. Her post-match interviews consistently reference specific tactical adjustments rather than emotional reactions, a maturity that coaches around the tour have noted with respect. There is also the matter of what the DC Open represents in the broader context of her season. This is not an isolated event. It is the opening act of a North American swing that includes Cincinnati and then the US Open, where she is expected to compete in the main draw. How she performs in Washington will set the tone for the weeks ahead. A deep run here would add ranking points, build confidence on hard courts, and create momentum heading into the bigger events. Even a first-round loss, if it comes against quality opposition, could provide valuable data about what adjustments are needed for the faster, higher-bouncing hard courts of Flushing Meadows. The draw ceremony in Washington will reveal the specific path that awaits her, and regardless of who lands opposite her name, the atmosphere will be charged with an energy that this tournament has rarely seen. The Filipino community in DC is preparing to turn the Fitzgerald Tennis Center into something approaching a home match for Eala. Flags, chants, coordinated support. This is the kind of atmosphere that can lift a player or suffocate them, and Eala has shown, particularly at Wimbledon, that she feeds off crowd energy rather than shrinking from it. So here we are. The girl who learned tennis on courts built for other sports in the Philippines, who turned professional at 14, who spent years grinding through ITF events and WTA 125 tournaments.